continue to get more reaction to that devastating explosion in Boksburg this morning. Several people have died, many others injured. Now houses are apart. Major road have also been destroyed. For more on this, we're joined by DA Councillor Simon Lapping. A pleasure to have you on the program despite the circumstances, Simon. Speak to us about your initial reactions, especially after realizing the level of devastation there.
Well, thank you, and good afternoon to your listeners. I got called at about 7:15 this morning after the first explosion had occurred, and I made my way down to the area, and I contacted the councillor for that area, Marius de Vos, who asked me, as he was in the Eastern Cape, to look over what was going on. And when I got there, it was a sight I've never seen something. It was like as if a Scud missile had landed in Boksburg, and there was a ground zero. And I walked up to the across the bridge, and sat on top of the bridge, and I just saw this absolute devastation. There was no sign of the LP gas truck at all. It had been blown completely to pieces. There was absolutely no sign of it left. There was just shrapnel and bits of truck lying all over the place. And one piece even hit another fire truck, which was about 200 meters away. And even another fire truck, which was 300 meters away, was also hit by stones from the railway line. And the devastation was, I've never ever experienced something like that in my life before. And the trauma that it caused everybody around in the neighborhood. There were houses that were damaged. The part of the hospital was damaged as well. There were cars that were knocked right out of the road into the Boksburg Lakes grounds, and I've never ever experienced something like this in my entire life before. And I really feel for everybody who have suffered out of this, and I'd like to offer my condolences to everybody's families who have suffered like this, this being the day before our Christ was born. And it's so sad to see that this kind of thing had happened just so close to Christmas. And it is very sad. Thank you.
So we heard from the Premier, Panyaza Lissufi, as well as the Mayor of Ekurhuleni, Tanya Campbell, along with other officials from various spheres of government, including the police as well, saying that some level of assistance will be provided, especially to the families that have been affected by this disaster. One family also being displaced at this point. Do you know, or have you been able to evaluate just the level of need for the residents who are affected there?
Well, I saw about 5 houses where had some form of damage, and I think it's not just the physical damage that has been caused that's going to need support. There's the emotional damage as well. I myself, I was very emotional about the whole thing. But you can see, this is going to be a long-lasting thing that's going to happen. And it's a sad moment in our country. It's a sad moment in our city. And I think this is the time when everyone needs to pull together. And I've noticed that a lot of people are coming out, bringing donations of bottled water and food and everything. Next to the hospital, there was an area set up whereby people could bring donations of food and drink and everything. And I see the gift of the givers have really reached out. They always do such a wonderful, sterling job. We should really praise them. They're out there and everything. They brought a truckload of food and stuff, and I believe they're also bringing medical supplies in as well. And this is the type of thing that we need. But it's the later damage as well. The damage to children, the damage to families that have been emotionally abused by this whole event of today, which is extremely sad. That's where we're going to really need a lot of help coming forward.
Now, both you and I have agreed that this is an extraordinary event and arguably the biggest disaster to have hit that area in recent times. Speak to us about what residents have said from your interactions with them.
Well, most of the residents, they were just in shock and awe. What happened initially was a lot of residents went out after the first explosion at 6 o'clock in the morning. And that's when the carnage took place. And I think there was just absolute disbelief that it could happen in a quiet little neighborhood like Plantation, which to me is one of the most, those little hidden gems of the East Rand, where, you have those beautiful old mining houses and everything. And it's people were just like gobsmacked. They just didn't know how to react. They didn't have anything. I think the emotional stress would come at a later stage. It hadn't sunk in. When I was there, which was, like 8 o'clock, 8:30, it was still like very raw to everybody. So, it was very difficult to gauge, what people's emotions were, It was just pandemonium at that time. But you can see there was a lot of people crying. There was a lot of unhappiness, a lot of hurt. And, this is when people need to reach out and understand and have a heart and show a heart to our fellow South Africans.
That's Simon Lapping. He is a DA councillor out in Boksburg.